end of the speech. Now we're getting to what they call the moment of truth. Come with me. I want to show you something.
Roger, Houston. TMI burn time will be 5 minutes, 45 seconds. Roger, Captain. Delta V burn time, 3.3 seconds.
There's a door here. I'm going to open it and walk into another area. If you follow me, you'll see a bit more. I'll answer some questions, and you're going to... Why don't you just follow me?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the YS channel, your home for movie reviews. Today, we're going to take a look at a cult classic conspiracy movie from 1977 called Capricorn One.
That's right. Capricorn One was a string of conspiracy movies from the 1970s that touch on current events that were going on in the 70s, ranging from political corruption to CIA overthrows of countries.
So this movie deals with a very real scenario that could happen, may have happened. What if NASA faked an important mission to keep their funding?
That's a good question. Anyway, hold on for a second. When Capricorn One was filmed, there were many conspiracy theories out there that NASA faked their mission to the moon. And the most infamous of these was that Stanley Kubrick was the guy who directed the actual moon landing footage. Capricorn One deals with NASA faking a mission to Mars.
Exactly. So in this movie, the mission to Mars is scrapped because a faulty system is discovered on the rocket that will kill the astronauts en route to Mars. Rather than admit the failure, NASA decides to fake the mission instead to secure their funding. The three astronauts can find themselves unwitting pawns in NASA's scheming.
From the start, NASA has a backup plan to fake their mission to Mars. The astronauts are taken to a film studio where they are filmed on the surface of Mars and inside their space rocket. The television mission goes according to plan, except when one of the segments airs prematurely. I forget exactly why, because in reality, if you were to put a camera on Mars, the transmission would take like 20 to 21 minutes to get there. And what happened in the movie, when the transmissions they were doing went ahead of schedule, and NASA tries to cover that up. A journalist soon discovers the error, and it begins to scoop up the century, and soon after the government cracks down on the fake mission.
All right, so basically, as you were saying, right? The astronauts, again, they discovered that they've been roped into this bullshit, right? And then, as part of this conspiracy, it is to be reported that their rocket ship's gonna burn up or break apart in the atmosphere upon re-entry to Earth. And in order to maintain that story, the astronauts are to be killed. That's just really where the drama of this movie intensifies. This is now, they gotta escape NASA scheming and let the world know what the fuck is going on. So basically the astronauts part ways to find safety. Meanwhile, the journalist on the story has to break his car cut, and the FBI raids his place soon after.
Capricorn One was made during a decade when conspiracies were everywhere, and in fact, they were being carried out. The movie makes you think hard, like would NASA actually do something like this for a variety of reasons?
Yeah. So it's funny that we talk about conspiracies, right? I mean, NASA, the founding of that agency is part of one of the greatest conspiracies ever. And that is Operation Paperclip, which, for those of you who are unaware, pretty much Operation Paperclip was the U.S.'s attempt to give amnesty to like Nazi Germany scientists and higher up officials to bring them to the United States in exchange for their knowledge and research. And by doing this, you know, they'll give them new identities, include their records, and absolve them of any war crimes. Otto von Braun, who pretty much helped NASA get their space program off the ground, and he was a key figure in the moon landing, was a very prominent SS Nazi official. He ran like a missile factory, right? And then fucking people didn't work fast enough, was fucking hanged and shit. But history likes to overlook that, especially old Walt Disney. But I digress. And we're talking about Stanley Kubrick helping NASA fake the moon landing by filming all that footage, right? You see the astronauts bouncing around the moon and all the live footage of the rocket leaving the atmosphere and all that shit. That could have been easily faked. So, like, instead of watching a live broadcast, you're just watching this footage that was filmed in the studio. Because if I recall correctly, I think when this stuff was to be broadcast, I think NASA did interfere originally. I'd have to do some research on that. But pretty much news crews were like allegedly told that this is the only footage that they were allowed to broadcast. So it makes you wonder. So again, where Stanley Kubrick is roped into this, right? He's somewhat centered to this moon landing fake, like the faking of the moon landing conspiracy, is he would have been the one like directing all that footage, right? He would have been the one in charge of whatever set or location was used to film the fake landing. And then I believe he kind of alludes to it in future projects of his. You know, maybe just to fuck with the public kind of thing. But when you're talking about conspiracies, here's one for you. So, Stanley Kubrick made a movie called Eyes Wide Shut, stars Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, where their characters get wrapped up in some like weird sex cult orgy group with the ultra elite kind of thing, which kind of mirrors how a lot of these elites and upper crusts of society operate and do things, and how they like use, I guess, sex and stuff to manipulate people. Like, it's kind of called like a honeypot. Now, one of the crazier things is Stanley Kubrick died before that movie could be released. And of course, if you believe in conspiracies, the big conspiracy is that this movie hit too close to home for some people in charge, and they had him killed. And then here's a crazier thing: is the original plot to the story, which was rejected, was that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman would had a child in the movie, which I actually still think they did. But that child was to be given to that sex cult. Of course, you can see why that would be rejected. But it's kind of weird how Hollywood, right? You see all these conspiracies, like, you know, all these famous actors, these weird sex groups, especially with the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, where people are, you know, trafficking underage people. And then you see all these Hollywood families putting themselves in ridiculous get-ups and situations, and their kids are all like weirded out and stuff. I mean, a lot of that all can't be coincidence, right? But who knows? I mean, these are all just wild conspiracies. But the ultimate conspiracy, right, involves probably one of the more prominent actors of this movie, as O.J. Simpson. So, for those of you who are unaware, O.J. Simpson, back in the 70s, was a great, amazing Hall of Fame football player for the Buffalo Bills, and then eventually ended his career at the San Francisco 49ers. And then he would go on to TV and movie stardom. And then Capricorn One was kind of his big break into that world. in the 1990s, he was accused of killing his ex-wife. And that led to like the biggest media circus or fucking trial I've ever seen. The O.J. Simpson case. In which, of course, he was found not guilty of the murder of his ex-wife. And that created a whole fucking uproar of civil rights. The justice system is broken. It was a fucking big deal. And he was the centerpiece of the whole conspiracy. Which the conspiracy is, did he kill his wife or did he not kill his wife? You know, but I digress.
Anyway, O.J. Simpson, the big deal about him in this movie was the director did not want him originally. He wanted like an actual black actor with some credits to their name in Capricorn One, but O.J. Simpson rubbed shoulders with right people in Hollywood, and some studio executive basically told the director of this movie, put O.J. Simpson in this movie, and O.J. Simpson got into this movie, and this was his big break. As you said, at the time, he was still playing for the Buffalo Bills, or maybe still playing for the 49ers, but his football career is going downhill, but his rise as a movie star and TV personality was going up. But at the same time, he was hiding a very dark secret. Because even though he was not found guilty of the murder of Nicole Simpson, he was guilty. There was a documentary out there by ESPN in which it documents that he was actually beating his wife on occasion, and he made threats to kill her. And when her body was found, he was the obvious suspect. But basically, the reason he got acquitted in the first place was that stupid giant concrete tactic. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Instead of putting O.J. Simpson in a private room and making sure the glove fit, they didn't do that, and as a result, that won O.J. Simpson the case. But here's the kicker: he was found not guilty in trial, but in civil court, he was found guilty of a murder, and he was ordered to pay damages, which amounted to like tens of millions of dollars. And O.J. Simpson spent the rest of his life avoiding paying those damages to the Simpsons family. And then later in the 2000s, he was caught and arrested for armed burglary, trying to retrieve some of his autographs, memorabilia, and he served some time in prison. And here's the funny thing: when it was time for his parole, apparently he did such a good job as a prisoner that the Las Vegas prison system basically granted him his parole, and he spent the rest of his life living in Florida until the day he died from cancer.
Yeah. So, needless to say, O.J. Simpson was a douchebag. All right. Whether or not you liked him as a football player or as an actor, you're allowed to, but it doesn't change the fact that even if he didn't kill his wife, he was a dick to her. You know, now, in addition to O.J. Simpson, you get James Brolin in this movie. He is the father of Josh Brolin, the guy that plays Thanos. You get David Doyle. So, with this cast of actors, you got a range of really experienced actors and brand new ones, such as O.J. So it's an uneven cast, right? As far as experience and all that stuff goes. Even the script and the dialogue and the writing is kind of uneven. Now, with that said, this is not a terrible movie. You know, certain movies like this do strike a chord with people. You know, especially like if it's convincingly or it's like competently made, right? One movie that deals with conspiracies, I think, was well done was The Da Vinci Code with Tom Hanks. Now, whether or not you believe in that conspiracy or not, the movie itself was well done. You know, like no getting around that. You know, so I mean, it strikes a nerve with people, or not a nerve, but they strike a chord. So I mean, these movies are out there. I mean, even the other ones, like we did a review for Soylent Green, which that takes place like in a dystopian future where people are fed other people. And you know, there's all kinds of doomsday conspiracies where like that is the plan for the future, kind of thing, right? So that should, I mean, a lot of the great conspiracies Hollywood has been linked to, and then you got prominent actors and directors in their work that reference the possibilities of conspiracies existing. Again, Stanley Kubrick, you know, he's a 2-for-1 there. You know, whether or not you think he helped make the moon landing or not, who cares? But the fact that he kind of openly let out the secret of all these sex cults within Hollywood may or not have led to his demise. And of course, there's another good movie out there called They Live. You know, that one hits a chord with many people. It's really weird, right? Probably said in jest, but they said that one's a documentary. And it's funny because, like, the main star, Roddy Piper, former WWE wrestler, you know, he makes that statement and then dies shortly after. So this is the kind of weird connections that give these conspiracies legs. Whether or not they are for real or not, who knows? Because some of the more outlandish things we've been told, or oh, that's monkey business, turned out to be true. Like MK Ultra. You know, like 20 years ago, right? If people like you were around telling people, yeah, the CIA doing mind control experiments and drugs in people, to fuck with the general public, they would call you a fucking lunatic. And then MK Ultra is declassified, and like, oh, they were doing that. So who's to say? But Capricorn One, that's a movie. Yeah, I mean, really adds fuel to the fire that the moon landing could have been faked, or at least the footage that we see broadcast around the world could have been staged or faked, while the actual moon landing actually happened for real. Because I say that because, again, this movie demonstrates that it could have been done. I mean, even like independent people outside of Hollywood demonstrate that footage could have been faked convincingly, of course. And then there's just like all kinds of weirdness, but on the moon itself, you still got the lunar buggies, the moon rovers, the American flag is still there. Our equipment's still there. You know, you can even the fucking tire tracks, the moon buggy, all that's still there. And I think even most of the footprints are still there. So, I mean, to me, with 1960s and early 1970s technology, it seems to me it have been very difficult to broadcast a live footage from the moon. Especially when you consider like the moon has little to no atmosphere. So like all the camera and recording equipment would have been subject to the fucking brutality of the space radiations. And then, you know, just to get to the moon, you have to fucking rocket across the Van Allen radiation belt, which in itself is fucking dangerous. And just with 1960s, 70s technology, that would have been very difficult to do. You know, as just for like a live broadcast, you gotta think about it. There's more computing power in this cell phone than there was at Houston, the Kennedy Space Center, or Cape Canaveral, and on the Apollo rockets combined. Right? So I mean, that adds to the possibility there's a conspiracy. Because like, how the fuck were they able to do all that? And again, there is proof that we did land on the moon, but as far as the footage and all that shit, like they could have faked it. They could have filmed that in the studio just to, you know, pat themselves on the back and make the public believe. I mean, not beyond the realm of possibility, they could have done that. And then sometimes secrets are thrown out in the open in inconspicuous ways, such as making a movie like Capricorn One. because it doesn't say that they did it. And then they throw in such an outlandish plot where like NASA is pretty much like the big bad, right? And then NASA decides they're going to kill these astronauts just to make the story hold up. You know, like that's very outlandish scheming when anyone has ever worked for a big government agency knows like they aren't that fucking efficiently ran. So, who's to say? With that said, if you like conspiracies, sci-fi movies, especially from the 1970s, Capricorn One is a good watch. You know, this is actually not a terrible movie, and I would recommend that you all watch it at least once or twice. But other than that, if you enjoy our reviews, drop a like, subscribe, and follow. We always greatly appreciate it.
There, people.
Yeah, later.